Most people fail not because they dream too small, but because they start too loud. They announce their goals before they've built the discipline to achieve them. They seek encouragement from others instead of developing the internal strength to encourage themselves. They want applause for their intentions rather than results for their actions. The marketplace doesn't reward good intentions, noble dreams, or impressive plans. The marketplace only pays for solved problems, delivered value, and consistent results. While you're seeking validation for what you might do someday, your competition is quietly building the capability to do what you're still talking about. The greatest threat to your success isn't your circumstances, your background, or your resources. The greatest threat to your success is your need to be celebrated before you've accomplished anything worth celebrating. There's a farmer in China who plants a seed that the entire world laughs at for 5 long years. This farmer waters this seed every single day. He fertilizes the soil. He protects it from harsh weather. He tends to it with the dedication of a parent caring for a newborn child. And for 5 years, absolutely nothing happens. His neighbors mock him. His family questions his sanity. Visitors to his farm shake their heads in disbelief. What kind of fool, they whisper, wastes 5 years on nothing? But on the first day of the 6th year, something extraordinary happens. That seed, that bamboo seed, shoots up 90 feet in just 90 days. 90 feet. In 3 months, it becomes one of the strongest, most resilient plants on the planet. Now tell me, did that bamboo grow 90 feet in 90 days, or did it grow 90 feet in 5 years and 90 days? You see, my friend, everything meaningful in life is built in the darkness before it's revealed in the light. Everything powerful is developed in private before it's demonstrated in public. The bamboo wasn't doing nothing for 5 years. It was building the most extensive root system you've ever seen. It was developing a foundation so strong that when the growth came, nothing could stop it. Right now, while you're listening to my voice, there are people around you who seem to be getting ahead faster. They're posting about their success on social media. They're talking loud about their achievements. They're visible, they're celebrated. And you might be wondering what's wrong with your own progress. You might be questioning why your growth seems so slow, why your breakthrough hasn't come. Yet, why you're still working in obscurity while others appear to be racing past you. But what if I told you that you're actually in the most powerful position possible? What if I told you that this season of quiet building, this season of invisible development, this season where nobody sees your work, is exactly where champions are made? What if I told you that the very thing you think is your disadvantage? The world has trained us to believe that if you're not being seen, you're not succeeding. Social media has convinced us that if you're not posting about it, it didn't happen. Our culture has programmed us to think that noise equals progress and visibility equals value. But I'm here to tell you something that will revolutionize the way you think about success. The most powerful people in the world built themselves quietly. Think about the last time you saw a skyscraper being constructed. What takes the longest? Is it the part where the building shoots up into the sky? No. It's the foundation. They spend months, sometimes years, digging deep into the earth, laying steel and concrete that nobody will ever see. The deeper they need to go, the higher the building will reach. The stronger the foundation, the more magnificent the structure. Your life is no different. While others are busy building impressive facades, you have the opportunity to build an unshakable foundation. While they're constructing with cheap materials that look good today, but won't last through tomorrow's storms. You can use this time to build with substances that will stand for generations. But here's what most people don't understand about quiet building. It's not passive. It's not about hiding. It's not about being lazy or making excuses for lack of progress. Quiet building is the most intense, focused, disciplined work you'll ever do. It's about developing yourself so thoroughly, so completely, that when your moment comes, when your opportunity arrives, when your season of visibility begins, you'll be so prepared that your success will seem overnight to everyone else, but you'll know it took years. There's a reason why every great performer, every successful entrepreneur, every influential leader has a story about years of preparation that nobody saw. There's a reason why every overnight success took decades to achieve. There's a reason why the people who sustain success over time are different from those who have momentary flashes of achievement. There's a reason why the people who sustain flashes of achievement, the difference is in how they built themselves. The difference is in what they did when nobody was watching. The difference is in how they used their invisible seasons. Most people waste their private moments. They treat their hidden seasons like waiting periods. They spend their preparation time wishing they were already in performance time. They use their development years complaining about not being discovered yet. But not you, not anymore, because today you're going to learn exactly how to build yourself quietly in 6 specific ways that will transform not just your external circumstances, but your internal capacity to handle whatever level of success is coming your way. You're going to understand how to use this time that others see as delay to create such depth in your character, such strength in your skills, such wisdom in your approach that when your breakthrough comes, it won't break you. You're going to learn how to develop in the darkness so that when you step into the light, you don't just shine, you illuminate everything around you. You're going to master the art of quiet building so that your foundation becomes so solid that nothing can shake it, so deep that nothing can uproot it, so strong that it can support not just your dreams, but the dreams of everyone connected to you. This isn't about patience for patience sake. This isn't about waiting passively for your turn. This is about active, intentional, strategic development that makes you unstoppable when your moment arrives. This is about building yourself so completely that success becomes inevitable, not accidental. The first way to build yourself quietly is to master the most important conversation you'll ever have. It's not the conversation with your boss, your spouse, or your business partner. It's the conversation you have with yourself every single day, every single hour, sometimes every single minute. Most people are losing the game of life because they're losing the conversation in their head. Listen to me carefully. Champions talk to themselves differently than average people do. Winners have a different internal dialogue than losers. Successful people have learned to become their own best coach, their own strongest supporter, their own wisest counselor. But most people have become their own worst enemy. I want to tell you about a young woman named Maria. She was 7 years old when she first touched a violin. Her family was poor, living in a small apartment above a bakery. The walls were thin, and Maria was terrified that if she practiced, the neighbors would complain about the noise. So she made a decision that would change her entire life. She decided to practice with a muted violin for 3 years. Maria practiced 4 hours every day on an instrument that made almost no sound. Her fingers learned every position perfectly. Her bow technique became flawless. Her timing was impeccable. But here's what's remarkable about Maria's story. While her violin was quiet, her mind was not. She had learned to conduct an internal orchestra. She could hear every note, every harmony, every crescendo in her head. She had developed the ability to have perfect pitch conversations with herself. When Maria was 10 years old, her music teacher finally heard her play on a regular violin. The teacher was speechless. This child, who had been practicing in near silence, played with the skill of someone who had been training in the finest conservatories. But it wasn't just her technical ability that was extraordinary. It was her confidence, her composure, her complete command of her instrument, you see. Maria had been building something that most musicians never develop. She had been building an internal relationship with excellence. She had been having conversations with herself about precision, about dedication, about pushing through frustration when nobody else could hear her efforts. She had been coaching herself through mistakes, encouraging herself through difficult passages, disciplining herself when she wanted to quit. By the time Maria was 18, she was performing at Carnegie Hall, but her success didn't start the night she walked onto that famous stage. Her success started in that small apartment above the bakery. In the silence. In the conversations she was having with herself when nobody else was listening. This is what I need you to understand. Your external world is always a reflection of your internal world. The way you talk to yourself in private determines how you perform in public. The conversations you have with yourself when nobody's around shape the confidence you carry when everybody's watching. Most people's internal dialogue sounds like this. I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. Other people are more talented than me. I always mess things up. I'll never be successful. I'm too old, too young, too late, too early. And then they wonder why their external results match their internal expectations. But champions have learned to speak to themselves the way a great coach speaks to a star athlete. They've learned to be firm but encouraging, honest but supportive, challenging but believing. They've learned to turn their mind into their greatest asset instead of their biggest liability. Here's how you master your internal dialogue. First, you become aware of what you're already saying to yourself. Most people don't even realize they're having these conversations. They are on autopilot, letting their mind run wild with doubt, fear, and limitation. You have to catch yourself in the act of negative self-talk. Second, you replace destructive thoughts with constructive ones. When your mind says, I can't do this, you immediately respond with, I'm learning how to do this. When it says, I'm not ready, you counter with, I'm preparing myself to be ready. When it whispers, I don't deserve success, you declare, I'm becoming worthy of everything I desire. Third, you practice this internal discipline until it becomes automatic. Just like Maria practiced her violin, you practice your mental instrument. You train your mind to support your goals instead of sabotaging them. You develop the skill of being your own greatest advocate instead of your harshest critic. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask yourself and the quality of the answers you accept. Winners ask better questions and demand better answers from themselves than average people do once you've mastered the conversation in your head. The second way to build yourself quietly is to develop systems that work for you even when you're not working. Most people focus on goals, but champions focus on systems. Goals are about the results you want to achieve. Systems are about the processes that lead to those results. Let me tell you about Antonio, a man who understood this principle better than anyone I've ever met. 25 years ago, Antonio worked the night shift at a factory. Every morning after his shift ended, instead of going straight home like his co-workers, Antonio would stop at a small corner building he had rented for $50 a month. Inside that building, he had set up a tiny bakery with one oven, one mixing bowl, and a dream that nobody else could see. At exactly 6 a.m., while the rest of the world was just waking up, Antonio would begin his quiet ritual. He would mix dough for exactly 12 loaves of bread. No more, no less. He would knead each loaf with the same precision, bake them at the same temperature for the same amount of time. By 8 a.m., he would have 12 perfect loaves cooling on his makeshift counter. Antonio never advertised. He never promoted himself. He never told anyone about his morning routine. But something remarkable happened. People walking to work began to smell the aroma of fresh bread coming from that little building. One person stopped and bought a loaf. Then 2 people, then 5. Within 6 months, Antonio had a line of customers waiting outside his door every morning at 8 a.m. But here's what made Antonio different from every other person who dreams about starting a business. He never broke his system. Rain or shine, tired or energetic, motivated or discouraged, Antonio was in that building at 6 a.m. making exactly 12 loaves of bread. He had created a system that was independent of his feelings, his circumstances, or his mood. After 2 years, Antonio was making more money from his 2-hour morning routine than from his 8-hour night shift. After 5 years, he owned 3 bakeries. After 10 years, he had franchised his simple system to 47 locations across the state. But it all started with one man, one oven, and one unbreakable system that he followed in complete silence. Systems are more powerful than goals because systems create consistency, and consistency creates compound results. When you set a goal to lose 20 pounds, you might achieve it once. But when you create a system of eating healthy meals and exercising regularly, you not only lose the weight, you keep it off forever. When you set a goal to read 50 books this year, you might push yourself to achieve it, but when you create a system of reading for 30 minutes before bed every night, you become someone who reads naturally, effortlessly, permanently. The key to developing systems in silence is to start so small that failure is almost impossible. Antonio didn't start by trying to bake 100 loaves. He started with 12. He didn't start by trying to open multiple locations. He started with one corner of one building. He didn't start by trying to become famous. He started by becoming consistent. Your systems should be so simple that you can do them even on your worst days. So automatic that they don't require motivation. So integrated into your daily routine that skipping them feels more difficult than doing them. This is how you build momentum that becomes unstoppable. While other people are setting big goals and talking about their grand plans, you're quietly putting systems in place that guarantee your success. While they're waiting for motivation to strike, your systems are producing results whether you feel like it or not. The third way to build yourself quietly is to develop abilities that everyone else thinks are worthless, while the crowd is chasing the popular skills, the obvious opportunities, the trending careers. You're positioning yourself in areas where there's little competition but enormous need. Most people make the mistake of trying to do what everyone else is doing, just trying to do it better. But smart people do what no one else is doing and become the only person who can do it. They find the gaps that others ignore and build expertise in spaces that others overlook. I want to tell you about a man named Thomas who understood this principle before the rest of the world caught up. 10 years ago, when everyone was throwing away their old electronics and buying the newest models, Thomas saw something different. While his friends were spending their evenings watching television or scrolling through social media, Thomas was spending his time in his garage, taking apart broken phones, tablets, and computers. His family thought he was crazy. His neighbors thought he was wasting his time. Nobody repairs electronics anymore, they told him. People just buy new ones. But Thomas wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. He was quietly developing a skill that he believed would become valuable, even though the market hadn't recognized it yet. Thomas taught himself how to repair circuit boards, replace screens, recover data from damaged devices. He studied repair manuals that most people wouldn't even look at. He practiced on devices that other people had given up on. He developed expertise in an area that the world was convinced was dead. But Thomas saw what others couldn't see. He understood that the throwaway culture wasn't sustainable. He realized that eventually people would want alternatives to constantly buying new devices. He knew that environmental concerns would make repair more attractive than replacement. Most importantly, he understood that in a world where everyone was learning the same skills, being the only person who could fix what everyone else was breaking would make him incredibly valuable. Today, Thomas owns a chain of repair shops that generate more revenue per square foot than most retail stores. He has contracts with major corporations to refurbish their old equipment. He trains other technicians in skills that are now in massive demand but short supply. What started as a hobby that others mocked has become an empire built on expertise that others ignored. This is the power of contrarian skill development. While everyone else is fighting over the same crowded opportunities, you're building capabilities in areas where you can become irreplaceable. While they're all trying to get good at what's popular today, you're getting excellent at what will be essential tomorrow. The skills that will make you wealthy are usually the skills that look boring, unglamorous, or outdated to most people. They're the abilities that don't get celebrated on social media, that don't impress people at parties, that don't seem exciting when you're learning them. But they're the skills that solve real problems for real people. And problems always pay well when solved correctly. Here's how you identify these overlooked skills. Look for areas where technology is creating problems that only human expertise can solve. Find industries where older knowledge is becoming rare but still necessary. Notice what successful people complain about but don't want to learn themselves. These complaints are opportunities disguised as problems. The goal isn't to avoid competition entirely. The goal is to become so skilled in your chosen area that competition becomes irrelevant because no one else can do what you do. The fourth way to build yourself quietly is to understand that your network determines your net worth, but not in the way most people think. Most people approach relationship building like they're collecting business cards or adding connections on social media. They go to networking events, shake hands, exchange information, and wonder why nothing meaningful comes from these interactions. But champions build relationships differently. They understand that one deep, authentic relationship with the right person is worth more than 1,000 shallow connections with random people. They focus on quality over quantity, substance over appearance, giving before receiving. Let me tell you about a young man named David who learned this lesson in the most unexpected way. David was 22 years old, fresh out of college, working as a janitor in a downtown office building. Every night, while the executives and professionals had gone home to their families, David would clean their offices, empty their trash, and vacuum their floors. Most people in David's position would have felt invisible, unimportant, forgotten. But David saw something others missed. He realized that he had access to something incredibly valuable that no one else had. He had time with successful people when they weren't performing for anyone else instead of rushing through his cleaning duties. David began to pay attention. He noticed which executives stayed late working on important projects. He observed who seemed stressed, who seemed excited, who seemed overwhelmed. He started leaving small notes of encouragement on desks where he saw signs of struggle. Not asking for anything, not promoting himself, just offering genuine support to people who rarely received it. One night, David noticed that Mr. Richardson, the CEO of a marketing firm, had been working until midnight for several weeks straight. His office was cluttered with papers, empty coffee cups, and the unmistakable signs of someone under enormous pressure. Instead of just cleaning around the mess, David took a few extra minutes to organize the papers neatly, refill the coffee maker, and leave a simple note that said, whatever you're working on, I believe you're going to succeed. Have a great day. Tomorrow. The next evening, Mr. Richardson was waiting for David. Are you the person who's been leaving these notes? He asked. David nodded, expecting to be told to stop instead. Mr. Richardson sat down and began to share what he was going through. His company was on the verge of landing the biggest contract in their history, but he was struggling with a presentation that would determine their future. I don't know why I'm telling you this, Mr. Richardson said, but your note yesterday came at exactly the moment when I was ready to give up. David listened, and then he did something that changed both of their lives forever. He shared an idea, not a complicated business strategy, just a simple observation from someone who had been watching successful people work for months. David had noticed that the most successful executives in the building all had one thing in common when they were preparing for important meetings. They didn't just practice their presentations. They practiced their responses to potential objections. They prepared for the questions they hoped wouldn't be asked. David suggested that Mr. Richardson's presentation might be more powerful if he addressed the concerns his potential clients probably had, but were too polite to voice. Mr. Richardson implemented David's suggestion. 3 weeks later, his company won the contract. But more importantly, he had discovered something rare and valuable. He had found someone who could see things from a completely different perspective, someone who observed without agenda, someone who cared about his success without wanting anything in return. within 6 months. Mr. Richardson had hired David as his personal assistant within 2 years. David was running his own division within the company. Within 5 years, David had started his own consulting firm with Mr. Richardson as his first investor and biggest supporter. But none of this happened because David was trying to network his way to success. It happened because he was genuinely interested in helping someone else succeed. This is the 5th way to build yourself quietly. Study what your competition doesn't. While David's competitors for advancement were focused on traditional business knowledge, David was studying human behavior. While they were learning what everyone else was learning, David was developing insights that no business school teaches. Most people study the same books, attend the same seminars, follow the same experts, and then wonder why they get the same average results as everyone else. But champions understand that extraordinary results come from extraordinary preparation. And extraordinary preparation means learning what others ignore. David didn't just study business strategy, he studied human psychology. He learned how successful people think when they're not in public. He understood the emotional cycles that drive decision making. He developed expertise in an area that most people never even consider studying: the psychology of success under pressure. While his peers were reading the latest business bestsellers, David was observing real successful people in their natural environment. While they were memorizing theories about leadership, David was watching how real leaders behaved when they thought nobody was paying attention. While they were learning what to do when everything goes right, David was studying how champions respond when everything goes wrong. This leads us to the 6th and final way to build yourself quietly. Take action while others are still planning. Most people spend more time preparing to get ready to start than they spend actually starting. They research every possibility, plan for every contingency, wait for perfect conditions that never come. But David didn't wait until he had an MBA to offer valuable insights. He didn't wait until he was promoted to start acting like a leader. He didn't wait until he had permission to start solving problems. He began where he was, with what he had, doing what he could. The difference between dreamers and achievers isn't talent, education, or connections. It's willingness to begin before you feel ready, to act before you have all the answers, to start before conditions are perfect. Champions understand that you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. David's story illustrates all 6 ways working together. He mastered his internal dialogue, telling himself that his position was an opportunity, not a limitation. He developed systems, creating consistent habits of observation and service. He invested in skills others ignored, developing expertise in human psychology and genuine relationship building. He built strategic relationships by focusing on giving value rather than getting recognition. He studied what his competition didn't, learning from real experience rather than just theory. And most importantly, he took action while others were still planning, beginning his journey to success from a janitor's closet instead of waiting for a corner office. This is the power of quiet building. This is how you develop yourself so completely that when your opportunity comes, you're not just ready for it, you're inevitable for it. This is how you create such depth of character, such strength of skill, such wisdom of approach that success becomes not something you chase, but something that chases you.